Well, for the first time, I'm very pleased to welcome Andy Godfrey, film critic for Sorted Magazine, to bring us some movie reviews. Hello, Andy. How are you doing?
Hi Nathan, I'm doing really well. I'm wearing my England t-shirt because looking forward to the final on Sunday, but also looking forward to talking to you about my other favourite subject, which, as you know, is movies.
Indeed, yes. Great to see you again. Great to see you at the gathering as well.
Yeah, we had a great time. As you know, I've got a new book out. We sold some books. We were there with our good friend Steve Legg, who I know you have on Pure. He is such a great character, isn't he? And
He is.
he and I were able to promote Sorted magazine, and it was just great to see Steve on stage again because we know that he's battling a fight with cancer. And so it was wonderful just to see him back in action. And the gathering was great. I mean, I loved every minute of the gathering.
Yeah, my first time. Absolutely, it was wonderful. I can't wait to go back next year.
Yeah, absolutely. It is just it's a really great event. I mean, to get 2,000 men together, and I think men open up when they're away from the ladies. I think men talk. I think men share more when they're on their own. A lot of men get very shy about talking and opening up. And the other really great result of the gathering was we know about 120 men committed their lives to Christ,
Yeah,
which was absolutely phenomenal.
it is.
So absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So it really was a good weekend, and it was great to see you guys there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Pure 24/7 Radio. It was great to speak to. We had so many great interviews with people live talking about who they were representing, what they thought of the
Yeah.
gathering. I think it's very safe to say that it's unanimous. It's amazing.
It is, and we'll be there next year, God willing, and looking forward to that. And when as I say, it was for me one of the real joys was to see Steve being able to get up on stage and do his thing,
Yeah.
because for him it's the best weekend of the year. I know that for a fact. And just to see men being challenged about their relationship with Christ, whilst having fun at the same time. I mean, Jesus said he'd come to give us life in all its fullness,
Yeah.
and to me that was it. Here are men worshipping. I mean, we had Graham Kendrick leading the worship and his band. That was fabulous, really, really brilliant. We had Bible teaching, but we also had men having fun, and I think it's a little foretaste of heaven. We'll be worshipping, we'll be together, we'll be with the Lord, but at the same time, life will be what it should be.
Yeah.
And I love the gathering. Yeah, to me, it's just again, it's probably my favorite weekend of the year as well. Yeah.
Yeah. But we are here to discuss movies because you are, of course, a film critic and you write in Sorted Magazine, don't you?
Yeah, so Sorted Magazine, lovely to see you wearing a sorted hoodie right now. Sorted is a Christian magazine for men. We've been around for 15 years, and we've just published issue 101. And again, it was Steve Legg's vision, but the idea is to have a magazine that a really high quality production that men can read and take interest in. So cars, movies, gadgets, sport. We cover all of those things, but in between those sort of articles, we have interviews with famous people who are Christians. And I know of men who've come to Christ, become Christians through
Wow.
reading our magazine. And yeah, about 4 or 5 years ago, I met Steve for the first time properly, and we became friends. And he knew that I'm a movie buff. I mean, I'm sitting in a room, Nathan, with 3,000 DVDs behind me and
Yeah, I can see all the
Blu-rays.
posters on the
You,
walls.
you can see all the posters on the wall, movie posters, left, right, and centre. To my right, there's a whole bookshelf which has just got books about movies on it. So yeah, I'm a real movie buff. And Steve just said to me, "Look, would you write the reviews for Sorted?" They needed somebody to do that, and it's great because one of the things we get it Sorted. Steve has established good relationships with all the film companies, and we get invited to previews and press screenings, so we can report on the very latest films. I get to go up to London probably a couple of times a month and see some films that are not coming out. I've just seen a film now that's not coming out till October, but
Wow.
I get to report on them. I get to view them. We get to tell people if I mean, at the end of the day, it's only my opinion, but I get to tell people whether they're any good or not, and I love that. That to me, this is a boyhood dream. If you'd said to me, I'm not quite sure exactly how old you are, Nathan, um, but if you'd said to me when I was young, when I was a teenager, what do you want to be when you grow up? I genuinely would have said I want to be a film critic because I was obsessed with movies even back then. And so, 50 odd years later, Steve Legg comes along and says, "Will you be a film critic?" And so the Lord sometimes just lets your ambitions come true. He allows dreams to come true. And in this case, the Lord's done this for me. And I get to watch all sorts of movies. I mean, it's some of them are pretty rubbish, to be honest. I saw a film last year that was unbelievably dire at a press screening, and you say so. You just have to be honest and
Yeah,
tell people
yeah.
if you think it's rubbish. But at the same time, we get to recommend some films, and we're also working with Christian film companies. There's the company that produces the TV series The Chosen, which some listeners may have seen, and films like Jesus Revolution, which came out last year. We are working very closely hand in glove with them, and I
Oh,
got
cool.
to go up to London earlier this year and meet the cast of The Chosen. I got to meet Jonathan Rumi, who plays Jesus in The Chosen, and we were in a posh hotel in London, believe it or not, really posh hotel. And he was sitting in a room, and I got to go in and have 10 minutes with him, interviewing him and some of the other actors as well. So with Sorted, we get these opportunities, and I love writing for Sorted. And we're trying to get the magazine. We want the magazine to be out there. We sell the magazine in places like WH Smith's, and we want the public to be buying Sorted because it's a magazine that they're interested in, but also because they're going to be reading about Jesus. They're going to be reading the
Yeah.
gospel. So we have been now in the last 2 years, another boyhood dream come true, because I always said as a child, I want to be quoted on a movie poster. I want to see my name on a movie poster. And we've been on 13 in the last 2 years,
Wow.
which again is good for the magazine. It's an Andy Godfrey
Yeah.
Sorting magazine, blah blah, 5 stars, whatever. And it's really good for the magazine because again, people are starting to take us seriously, but they're reading the magazine and they are reading about Jesus, and
Yeah.
that's what we want. We want to point people in the direction of Jesus Christ, and we also send the magazine into every prison just about in the country, and we send it into every army and navy base in the country free of charge.
Amazing.
And that's great. So that's all through the work of chaplains. And we recently got a letter from the chaplain at Belmarsh Prison in London saying, please get this, it's absolutely true. Please send us more magazines. The prisoners are fighting over it. They enjoy reading it. So, you know, it is fantastic because guys in prison, again, are reading the gospel.
Indeed.
They're hearing that Jesus Christ changes lives. And if just one prisoner gets the message that Jesus Christ can change his life and turn
Yeah.
his life around, that's what we
Yeah.
want, isn't it? We want
It
people coming.
is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's so
So
great to
yeah, I'm
hear
a
that
film critic for Sorted. That was a really long roundabout, long-winded way of saying it. I apologize.
that's absolutely fine. It's great to hear you're very obviously very passionate about movies and also telling others about Jesus at the
Yeah,
same time.
your dad interviewed me at the gathering because I've actually written a book
Yes, and I have a
about
signed copy of it, which
movies.
I'm
You
actually
have a
treasure
signed
always.
copy. It is a book about movies, but it's a book about what movies say about the Christian message,
Yeah.
how we can get the Christian message. Yesterday, I was speaking at an event, and by the way, if people want to book me up, I'm doing this now. I'm taking a presentation to churches where we can speak to your men's group or your whole church or your ladies group. Yesterday, I was at the over 50s group at my church, and I did a whole afternoon with them where we had some fun looking at different movies, talking about favorite movies, showing clips from movies. And then at the end, I brought in the story of Jesus.
Mm.
So I'm available to do that, but the book is out there. It's on Amazon. If anybody's interested.
Absolutely. It's a great
Quick
book.
plug. Thank you.
But now let's have a look at movies because of course I'd love to hear about some of your latest some of the latest movies because of course the great thing about movie reviews is that like you said earlier some are not so very good and some are really great and because of you we don't have to watch the rubbish ones. We can just enjoy the great ones. So would you mind giving us maybe the top five that perhaps you've have come out recently?
Okay, so the number one movie in the country at the moment is Inside Out 2. So those who've seen Inside Out will know that it was told the story of a little girl called Riley, and it was the characters inside her head who are all the different emotions she experiences. So Joy is personified as a little girl wearing a green dress. She's inside Riley's head, controlling the panels that make Riley joyful. There was sadness, there was jealousy, and so on. So now Riley in this new film has grown up. She's a teenager, and she's experiencing all sorts of new emotions. As we get older, so we now meet anger and we meet envy and we meet jealousy and we meet boredom because she's a bored teenager. And there's this little character inside her head who just spends the whole movie slouching on a couch, um, being bored. And whenever Riley's bored, she comes to the fore. It's a story about coming of age. It's a story about a teenager growing up. I thought it was wonderful. Some of the characters we know from the first film that there's all sorts of different areas inside Riley's brain,
Mm.
and some of the characters have to go on an adventure to. Joy gets lost. Typical teenager. Joy gets lost. So some of the other characters have to go and find Joy, right? And at one point inside Riley's brain, they come across this great big gulf that they've got to bridge. And somebody says, "What's that?" And another character says, "That's the sarcasm." Get it? The sarcasm. And that was just a brilliant moment. So it's a great film about growing up. It's a great film about teenagers. The number two movie is A Quiet Place Day One. So people will know that there's been two Quiet Place movies. This is a alien invasion movie, science fiction. So in the first film, we the Earth is invaded by aliens who see with their ears. They don't have eyes; they see with their ears. In other words, if you make a sound, they can pounce on you. So the whole Earth has become deadly quiet. You don't make a sound because the second you make a sound, these aliens know where you are and they will pounce. And
Wow.
we've had this is now the third film in the franchise. It is a film that is quite scary. It's quite violent. It's not over gory at all. It is a film that is a really, really good science fiction story. And what's key to it is the central character is actually dying anyway. She's from a hospice and gets caught up in the turmoil of this alien invasion. I thought it was really, really good science fiction. So that's number two in the box office. Not that many kids films in the top five. The other one that's still in the top 10, actually at number seven, is the Garfield movie. So some people will, I know a lot of people go, Garfield? Who's Garfield? Garfield is a big fat orange lazy cat. And he goes on an adventure with his estranged dad. And it's good fun for kids. I mean, it wasn't really my cup of tea, but the children that were in the audience when I saw it really seemed to enjoy it. So the Garfield movie. We've also got a movie at number nine, which is another fantasy kids movie called If. So I don't know if you ever had an imaginary friend. Apparently I did. I had an imaginary friend called Jennifer. What happens to our imaginary friends when we grow up? This film says our imaginary friends go to an imaginary friend's retirement home. So all the imaginary friends are in a retirement home, and we meet a young lady who is determined to reunite the aged imaginary friends with their aged people who actually dreamt them up. So it's a really good fantasy. It's not as good as it could be. If this had been made by Steven Spielberg, we'd all be in tears by the end of it. But it's a fine movie. And I'll just highlight, if I may, one other that's currently in the top 10. And this one is a 15 certificate. But the bike riders. So between 1969 and 1973, a certain photographer joined up with a motorbike gang, sort of Hell's Angels type thing. Except these are really quite good guys, actually, really on the whole. And he photographed them. And in 1973, he published a book of photographs that he'd taken of this motorcycle gang that was just riding around America on their big bikes, going from town to town. They've taken those photographs and they kind of turned them into a movie with the bike riders telling their story. It's a really good, solid film. I think it's going to be up for some Oscars this year. It's called The Bike Riders, and it's really good. So those are the ones that I would highlight in the current top 10. I mean, of the current top 10, I've seen seven, but Inside Out 2, A Quiet Place, If, the Garfield movie, and The Bike Riders. They are all really, really good films.
Excellent.
So
Well,
those
that
are the
sounds
ones.
good. I've seen a lot of Garfield, the original cartoons.
Right.
So that does sound like fun.
If you like it, I mean, it's madcap, it's maniac, it doesn't stop. It hardly gives you time to breathe, but then it is
Yeah.
only an hour and a half, and there are some good laughs to be had in there, I will say. But it's. Did we really need a Garfield movie? I don't know. Obviously, we did because it's been in the top 10 now. I was actually checking. It's been in the top 10 for 6 weeks since it came out. So obviously, people are going to see it, and I think families are enjoying it.
Yeah, well, I think, in
Really good.
fairness, for Garfield, for a long time, it's been sort of I don't know, a household name almost,
Yeah, well,
Everyone knows about
he was a
Garfield.
cartoon character for many years in a
Yeah.
national newspaper, and of course, I mean, the thing with Garfield is he's fat, he's lazy, and he just spends all day eating pizza. Uh,
Yeah, I think
But
we
it's
all
good.
relate to him one way or
Yeah.
another.
Yeah, I mean, there are other films in the top 10 that I enjoyed. There's Bad Boys 4, which Bad Boys 1 was a story in 1985 of two cops in Los Angeles who were investigating drug crimes. And this is now the fourth film in that franchise. If you like shootouts, if you like gunfights, if you like wisecracking cops, getting on each other's nerves, that's the film for you. Plenty of action. Cars blowing
Sounds
up
good.
all over the place. Yeah.
Well, that sounds great. That's some good movies there.
Yeah.
And would you recommend maybe just one movie that people could watch over the weekend? Maybe
Okay,
your
so
favorite?
one of my favorite films of recent years, I think it's number 20 in my list in the book of my top 100. But I have over the years, I've made friends with believe it or not, with Britain's leading female filmmaker. So her name is Carol Morley. She's directed a number of really great films. And she had a film come out 2 years ago, and I was invited to not just the London premiere, but I was invited to the party afterwards where I got to meet all the stars of the film. So this
Wow.
is a film by my friend Carol Morley, and she's made a film called Typist, Artist, Pirate, King, and it's coming to Netflix from tomorrow. And I really hope hundreds of millions of people will see this. I mean, it didn't have a great run in the cinemas, unfortunately, but now it's on Netflix. People are going to get a chance to see it. So, Typist, Artist, Pirate, King. I have a big poster on the wall just here, which Carol Morley, the director, has actually signed. Typist, Artist, Pirate, King tells a story of a lady who had mental problems. And you know what? I talk about this film all the time, and I'm going to have to quickly look up because my brain has gone to bush while I'm live, while I'm on the air, and I literally got to just look up her name. It tells the story of an artist. This lady was an artist at the Royal School of Academy. She had great, back in the 50s, she had great potential. She had great, there we go. Sorry about that. Oh,
Don't worry,
yes.
we can.
No, yeah, okay. Typist Artist Pirates King is about a lady called Audrey Amis, and how I could forget that, I don't know. Audrey Amis was a student at the Royal School of Academy back in the 50s, but she had mental problems and she had to drop out. And her work, some of which was absolutely phenomenal, was never displayed. Carol Morley, the director, got to see some of this work, of which there were hundreds of pieces of art, possibly thousands, and it was all in carrier bags in the mental home, or in the sheltered accommodation rather, where Audrey ended her life, where her life came to an end in her 70s. She found her passport, and in the passport, the job description was typist, artist, pirate, king. And what Audrey did was she just drew and painted everything she saw around her. If she saw a bird in the sky, she would stop the car and draw it. If she passed a building that she thought was interesting, she would stop the car and paint it. She would just literally draw and paint ordinary everyday life. And some of her works are extraordinary. And Carol was going through all this material and thought people should see this. People should know the story of this woman's life. And so she created a sort of fantasy story based around the last week of her life, where Audrey tells her carer. Now, Audrey is played by Monica Doolan. Her carer is played by the rather lovely Kelly MacDonald, who I got to meet these actresses at the press screen at the press party, premiere party. In the film, Audrey says to Kelly MacDonald, they're in London, there is an art gallery open where people can display their works for free. You've got to take me before I die. You've got to take me, and my work has got to be displayed. So her carer says, I will drive you to this art gallery. Okay. And yes, we'll display your work. They get in the car, and the carer says to Audrey, so we're in London. Where is this art gallery? Give me directions. And she says, it's in Sunderland. So the movie then becomes a road trip with these two women traveling to Sunderland so that Audrey can display her art in this exhibition. Now, Audrey's mental illness, Nathan, was really interesting, and it's a real condition. She would walk up to total strangers, but she would see them as people from her past. So there's a scene where she's in a cafe, and there's a young couple on the next table, and she goes up to them and she says, hi, John. Hi, Jane. Haven't seen you since school. But these are two total strangers.
Ah,
But this is how her mental illness manifested it. This was the problem she had. She would walk up to total strangers, but she would say, "No, no, no, no. So and so is a person from my past." And they have some there's various elements of fantasy in this. Um, and it all culminates with a meeting, a reunion with her sister. And we actually discover what happened that caused the mental illness in the first place. And it was an accident in some woods near a waterfall. I don't want to give away any more than that. But it is a remarkable film. I think it's one of the best films of recent years. It's one of my favorites. And I'm not just saying that because the director is a friend of mine. And in fact, I was talking to Carol, the director, just this week. It is a film with two brilliant central performances. Kelly MacDonald playing the carer, Monica Doolan playing Audrey. They are both sensational, both sensational. And it's going to be on Netflix as from tomorrow. And you know, I love the tagline for this film. The tagline for this film is this: reality is just around the bend. Reality is just around. As I have a big poster just to my right hand side on my wall, which Carol, the director, has signed. So Netflix, as from tomorrow, as from Friday, um, Typist Artist Pirate King. Please have a look at it. I think it's a wonderful film, hugely enjoyable. Might
yeah.
take you a few minutes to sort of get into it, get the vibe of the film. It's got a fantastic score. I've got the soundtrack on a yellow vinyl, which the composer signed for me at the premiere
Wow.
party, and it is just a wonderful score. Towards the end, we discover that Audrey's favourite hymn was "Will Your Anchor Hold in the Storms of Life," and we get a beautiful rendition of this hymn, which plays a significant part in the plot. So you've got an old hymn playing a significant part in the plot of the film. I can't praise it enough. I've seen it I don't know how many times, and as I say, I was privileged to be invited to the London premiere and to meet the stars of the film. So yeah, that's on Netflix as from Friday. Typist, Artist, Pirate King.
Excellent. That sounds very interesting.
It's really good.
Typist, artist, pirate, king. It does sound very, very interesting, especially the mysterious nature of this illness.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it really is. And at one point, they wander into a. Audrey insists that they wander into a church on this journey from London to Sunderland. She's about to pass the church, and she says, "Stop! I need to go into the church to have a few minutes of reflection." They go, and the vicar suddenly becomes somebody from her past. You know,
Wow.
and another point, they say they're in a cafe. At another point, they're on a beach somewhere. At another point, Audrey causes problems, and the police have to be called, and the policeman becomes somebody from her past. So it's an endlessly fascinating film. I must have seen it probably half a dozen times at least. I saw it. I've seen it three times in a cinema, including the premiere. And every time I see it, I see new things in it.
Wow.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, road trip films are always really exciting. Seeing people go on a trip and
Yeah,
travel to different places. You get to see loads of scenery and
yeah,
as they travel along. It's
yeah.
it's really interesting.
This is
Well,
kind of like a British Thelma and Louise.
yeah. Well, thanks so much, Andy. Great to
Okay,
hear about all these films. And as you recommended, Typist, Artist, Pirate King. So
okay,
if you do get a chance to watch that, do
please
that
do.
over the weekend.
And send my friend Carol a message on Twitter. Tell her how much you enjoyed it. Tell her I said to do that.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, thanks so much,
Okay,
Andy. Great to chat with you. I'll see you
and
next
you.
week.
Thank you very much indeed. God bless you and God bless Pure.